Hey, welcome back to your favorite technical mathematics class. We're going to determine the graph of a function by point plotting today. So now that we have that Cartesian coordinate system, we can plot all points that satisfy that original relationship y equals f of x. So first we're going to create a table of ordered pairs, and we're going to plot the ordered pairs, and we're going to draw what it looks like. So here's an example. F of x equals negative 2x plus 3. And remember, f of x is just your y. Right, this is the exact same thing as saying y equals negative 2x plus 3. So what we're going to do is create a table of values. And with a linear function just means it's in this form. Y equals ax plus b. You got a number here for a, you got a number here for b. X is just to a 1 power on this. Okay, so if it can be written in that form, it's going to look like a line, and you can just pick any values for x that you want. So you just pick your inputs that you want to plug in, and now you just plug them in one by one. Let's throw in the negative 2 first. So negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. 4 plus 3 is 7. So y equals 7. In other words, f of negative 2 is 7. In other words, when x is negative 2, y ends up being the 7. Alright? Now we plug negative 1 in to the equation for x. Negative 2 times negative 1 is 2. Plus 3 is 5. So when x is negative 1, y is 5. Plug 0 in. Negative 2 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 3 is 3. Plug 1 in. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Plus 3 is 1. And plug 2 in. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Plus 3 is negative 1. So now we have those points, and we can just graph them. And we can see what this line looks like. Negative 2 up 7 right there. We got negative 1, and we're up 5. We got 0, we're up 3. We got 1, and we're up 1, 1, 1. And we got 2, comma, negative 1. And then we just draw right through there. And there's our line. It's supposed to be a nice straight line, but I don't have a straight edge on me, but you kind of get the picture of that. So similarly for this next one, f of x equals 3x plus 2. So you've got x, y. I'm going to call it x, f of x this time. You're going to pick some x values again. Any x values you want for this line. You're going to throw in negative 2 first. So you got 3 times negative 2 plus 2. You got negative 6 plus 2, or negative 4. Plug in negative 1. So f of negative, in other words, y is negative 4. When x is negative 2, y is negative 4. Now we're going to plug in negative 1 for x. So you got 3 times negative 1, as x is negative 1 this time. So we got negative 3 plus 2, which is negative 1. So y, f of negative 1, y is negative 1. When x is negative 1, plug 0 in for x. So f of 0, 3 times 0 plus 2. Well, anything times 0 is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. So y is 2 whenever x is 0. And so on. Plug 2 in for x, and we got 2 times 3 is 6 plus 2 is 8. Okay. And we plot those points again. We got negative 2, down 4, negative 1, negative 1. We got 0, 2. We got 1, 5. And we got 2, 8. And then we draw. Whoops, I missed my dots. But anyways, you get the picture. You draw it right through your dots there. Well, that's linear functions. Those were lines. So now let's look at quadratic functions. So quadratic functions are of this form. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. A, b, and c are going to have numbers there. And the shape of this is a parabola. So wherever this parabola is, let's say it's like this here, you're going to have a vertex, this is called, which is the lowest part of the graph, or the highest point if it's flipped over. So that's the middle of this parabola. Right through the middle of that is called your axis of symmetry. Your axis of symmetry, and there's an equation for the axis of symmetry. It's x equals negative b over 2a, because remember you're going to have numbers for a, b, and c. So x equals negative b over 2a. That's the equation for that dotted line right down the middle. So the vertex has that same x value. That's how you're going to find the vertex. Okay, x equals negative b over 2a. So for example, you got this f of x equals negative x squared minus 4x plus 1. So y equals, remember, ax squared plus bx plus c. So you see how your a is that negative 1, your b is that negative 4, and your c is that positive 1. So a is negative 1, b is negative 4, c is 1, right? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to find the vertex. You want to find the middle of this graph. So you're going to find the axis of symmetry. You're going to find the middle of this parabola by plugging it into x equals negative b over 2a. So negative, our b here is negative 4 over 2 times negative 1. So this becomes negative times the negative 4 is positive 4 over negative 2, so that's negative 2. So the middle of this graph is x equals negative 2. That's the middle of our graph. Let me erase this for just a minute. Okay, so that's the middle of the parabola. Oops. X equals negative 2. So I'm going to draw this. X equals negative 2. So there's that vertical line, x equals negative 2. Now when you point plot, you want to have that be your starting point, and then you want to pick points to the left of it, like negative 3 and negative 4, and then pick points to the right of negative 2, so like negative 1 and 0. And then you just plug those in one by one. Okay, so you plug in let's do the negative 2 first. This is our vertex. Plug in negative 2 into the original equation. So you got y equals negative x squared minus 4x plus 1. We're going to plug in negative 2 first. So you got negative 2 squared is 4, negative 4 times negative 2 positive 8, negative 4 plus 8 is 4, 4 plus 1 is 5. So negative 2, 5. Okay, here's the vertex of this graph. And I should mention one other thing. You see how your a is negative 1? If that's negative, what this graph is going to do is it's going to go down. It flips that u over. Okay, so instead of opening up, this thing's going to open down. But let's plug in some other points. Let's plug in negative 1 now. So let's go to the right. So I've already plugged in an x value of negative 2, and I got this point up here. Now we're going to go to the right. We pick an x value of negative 1, and then we'll pick an x value of 0. But let's plug in negative 1. You got negative 1 plus 4 plus 1. It looks like this ends up being 4. Plug 0 in, same way, you get 1. Plug the negative 3 in, let's see, you get 4. And you plug the negative 4 in, you get 1. So you plot all those points now. So negative 1, we're up 4. That was the second one. Negative 1, 4, 0, 1's right there. Negative 3, 4's right there. And negative 4, I'm up 1 right here. And then you draw this. Remember, this is a parabola. So it's got that U shape, except in this case it's flipped over because your A is negative 1. And here, again, that's your vertex right there. At negative 2, 5. Okay. So here's another one. You got y equals, now you got to write this in order. 2x squared. The x squared's got to go first, then the minus 4x, then the minus 7. So here's your A. Your B is negative 4, and your C is negative 7. So you start out again with the axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry. X equals negative B over 2A, so we can find the vertex. So it looks like this ends up being 4 over negative A, so negative 1/2 on this one. So that's where your vertex is on this one. Oh, I'm sorry. Good grief. 2 times A. That's 2 times 2 right there. Negative. That's a, oh, good grief. That's a 4 right there. 4 over 4 is 1. Sorry about that. Saw that there. Our a, if you notice, is 2. So it's negative b. There's our negative b over 2 times a is 2. Sorry about that. So you got 4 over 4, which is 1. So that's our starting point for our vertex. Our vertex, we're going to have an x value of 1. And then we're going to pick points to the right of it, like 2 and 3. Pick points to the left of it, like 0, negative 1. And then you just plug them in one by one into the equation. So we're plugging 1 in first. 2 times 1 squared minus 4 times 1 minus 7. 2 minus 4 minus 7, so negative 2 minus 7, negative 9. So 1, negative 9 is our first point down here. 1, negative 9. Plug the 0 in, and you're going to get negative 7. Plug it in the same way. Plug in that negative 1 there, and you're going to get negative 1. Let's see, plug the 2 in, you get negative 7. Plug the 3 in, you get negative 1. You plot those points. So 0, negative 7, 0, negative 7 right there. We got negative 1, negative 1. Negative 1 right there. Plot the 2, negative 7. About right there. Boy, I'm having this thing's wanting to move it. 3, negative 1. So here's all our points, and that was that 0, negative 7 right there. Anyways, it's got some curvature. It should be a little more curved right there, not sharp. So it's U-shaped going through those points there. Okay. Now, how about that y equals 1/2 x squared? Well, in this case, notice there's no bx term or c term. Your a is just that 1/2. So y equals ax squared. Again, there's no bx, there's no c. So b is 0, c is 0, and your a is 1/2. So when you're finding the axis of symmetry, the middle of this parabola, you throw 0 in, 1/2 in for the a. Well, 0 divided by 2 times 1/2 is 1. 0 divided by anything is 0. So the middle of this, where your vertex is, has a 0. And you're going to pick points to the right of 0, 1 and 2. Pick points to the left, negative 1, negative 2. And then you just plug them in one by one into the equation. So we'll throw the 0 in first. 0 squared, 0. 0 times anything is 0. Plug the 1 in. 1/2 times 1 squared. So you do the 1 squared first. And then times it by 1/2 and so on. Now we're going to do the 2 squared is 4, 4 times 1/2, 2, and so on. And then you graph this sucker. So you got 0, 0, you got 1, and we're only up halfway, half, 2 for the love, come on. Halfway, and then 2, we're up 2. Negative 1, we're only up 1/2. Negative 2, we're up 2. And you draw your parabola. Okay. Well, let me show you another way you can check your parabolas after you've point plotted. And that's to go to decimals.com. And let's say you're graphing, hit the start graphing. And let's graph that first one we had. F of x or y equals negative x squared minus 4x plus 1. And you see it'll even give you the vertex here, so you can check that. So negative 2, 5 is your vertex there. And if you also want to check, did you plot the points correctly, you can hit this edit list right here, convert to a table, it'll even give you points. So that negative 2, 5, you know, and you can plug in any x value that you want. Let's say you want to know what 8 spits out. It spits out negative 99, 5, or 4, or whatever. And they're on the graph like that. So that's a great way to check yourself after you've point plotted. Well, thanks for listening. We will see you soon.